Hello, everyone. This is Eve Harow on Rejuvenation for the Land of Israel Network. Very exciting show that I have for us today. And what is today? Today's the 19th of May, 2020, the 25th day of Iyar, 5780. And I'm with us today, obviously virtually, with two of the rabbis that I have very, very strong feelings for and I think are doing amazing things for the Jewish world. Rav Reuven Taragin, who's the Educational Director of World Mizrachi, also at Yeshivat HaKotel, very, very well-known educator. And Rav Hanoch Teller, who I am sure most of you have heard of, author of 28 books, and one of, I would say, the most out there motivational speakers in the Jewish world already for many, many years. So, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me today on Rejuvenation in this crazy time that we're having. But with everything and with COVID and pandemics and isolation and everybody trying to figure out what's happening in this world, there's one thing that's a basic thing for many of us, and that's Torah learning. And no matter what else is going on, our calendar continues. And next week, we come upon my favorite holiday. I mean, what woman doesn't like one day, cheesecake, flowers, and it's an incredible holiday, and especially for Shavuot, of course, I'm talking about, and especially for me, who has the big privilege of living in Gush Etzion, right outside Beit Lechem. I can literally look outside and see the fields of Ruth and Naomi. So the book of Ruth comes alive at my feet. I see the wild wheat growing outside in the hills. There's nothing like it. It's living Torah. Living here is living Torah. But these two rabbis who are the guests on my show today do more than just live Torah. They teach Torah, and they live and breathe to do that. So there is a very special program that is going to be broadcast on Sunday. Yeshivat HaKotel unprecedented worldwide Achdut program. And Rav Reuven, maybe you'll start off and tell my listeners a little bit about, first of all, why it's unprecedented and what is going to be going on that everybody listening should be tuning into next Sunday. Reuven, maybe tell my listeners what's this program all about.
I think this program is the silver lining of the coronavirus. Because we're not able to gather locally in our shuls and schools, for the first time in the history of our people, the chief rabbis leading Rosh Yeshiva from across the hashkafic spectrum and leading rabbanim and educators from around the world are gathering together to teach Torah to the Jewish people together. And we anticipate having upwards of 100,000 people involved in this learning program. Wow. Because it's being advertised very heavily in Israel, South Africa, Australia, England, Canada, North America, South America. It seems like it will be the largest Torah learning program since we accepted the Torah at Har Sinai.
Wow.
So it's a very special moment where the Jewish world is gathering both geographically and hashkafically to emphasize our unity. Just to explain the name of the program, if you look at the first verses of Shemot chapter 19, it describes how the Jewish people arrived at the mountain of Sinai. And it describes camp, and then it says, and he encamped. After it said right before, and they encamped. Our rabbis teach us that the shift from plural to singular is expressive of the Jewish people having arrived there unified. And they teach us that our relationship with our beloved Torah has to be as a unified nation. And that's why this program, on the day when the Jewish people arrived at Mount Sinai over 3,000 years ago unified, on Rosh Chodesh Sivan, we are going to learn in a unified way. And I think we're going to make Hashem very happy.
That's good, because it's important to make Hashem happy. I think he looks down on the world and thinks like, I don't know about this one. Maybe we should set the reset button, and maybe that's what this is all about. A little bit of this pandemic. Maybe it's a little bit of a reset button. I know that we're all trying to figure out exactly what's going on here. For my listeners who may not be familiar, not all my listeners are part of the tribe, are Jews, people who love Israel, though. Shavuot, there is a very, very, very strong tradition of learning Torah all night on Shavuot. And for those of us who can be in Jerusalem, of going down in the morning, even before the sun comes up, of all gathering at the HaKotel, and there's beautiful prayers, and people have been up all night learning. And that's not going to happen this year either. that ingathering, if you will, at close to the holiest site, close to Har HaBayit, of course, the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, because of restrictions of social distancing. So people are going to be limited in coming. So what you have done here is taken the cloud, right? You talk about the silver lining, the cloud of not being able to gather and virtually bringing more people together that would have been able to physically come together. Now, Rav Teller, how did you get involved in this programming? And what is the breadth of the Jewish world that makes it unprecedented, this particular event?
If I may, I just want to start a correction from earlier.
Please.
It's inappropriate to put in the same breath Rabbi Taragin and myself. He is the brainchild. He's the one with all these ideas. He's truly a Rosh Yeshiva. I'm the smallest little pawn in all of this.
I'm going to have to make a correction to Rav Teller's correction, but we'll leave it right now. Okay. Yes.
No, I mean, it's not, you can't go in the same breath.
Okay.
But if anything can unify the Jewish people, I would love and crave to be involved. And fortunately, he asked me to be involved, and I'll be speaking for it. A few back things he's asked me to do as well. But it's just my privilege to be working in conjunction with Rav Taragin. But the truth of the matter is, that does not make me unique. I mean, who isn't involved with Rav Taragin worldwide?
It's hard to say no to Rav Taragin. I will definitely vote for that. Yes.
He is the Bernie Lander of our generation. Every second, another idea is being launched and hatched. I'm sorry, I forgot your question.
Not just launched and hatched, but actually done. And that is really a lot of people executed. Yeah. Yes. I don't know. Yeah, I don't particularly like that word, but yes. Right. A lot of people have ideas, and there's very few people that actually make that happen. But now, all joking aside, and I say it with pain, but also there's a reality. One thing that the Jews are famous for is not getting along. Everyone has, we do get along sometimes when there's a crisis. We do beautifully. But there's the different streams of this and different streams of that, and you should do it this way, and you should do it that way, and you should live here, and you should dress like that, and which is amazing, and it's why many of us are lawyers, because we're constantly debating and grappling, and that's part of what the Torah tells us to do, is to be thinking and questioning all the time. So how did you? I know Rav Taragin asked you to get involved, but there's a lot of educators out there. He asked you for a very, very specific reason, I believe, because of the kinds of educating that you do and the audience that you have. So leave modesty aside, please, Rav Teller, for a minute, and please tell us what niche you fill here in the Jewish world that's going to be so important for people to hear from you this coming Sunday.
Again, my involvement in this program is it's really noted Rosh Yeshiva and very prominent educators. I'm not in that list. However, Taragin is aware of the fact, I might be as well, that there's some people that for them to hear a shir from Herschel Schachter or to hear a lecture from Rabbi J.J. Schachter is very platonic. And so he needs me to help out those people or to service those people who need something a little bit lighter or a lot lighter.
A lot lighter.
That would be my function.
All right. Now, you've really made a name for yourself over the years, though, as a motivational speaker. What does that mean? What do you motivate people to do? To think about the Torah, to think about how the Torah affects, is not just something you learn, but becomes a part of you and something to live by. You're tremendously experienced. You've been doing this for decades. How do you connect people with that in your level?
My message is usually is a Musar-oriented message. That has to do with character. My strongest theme is always about their cheretz and how to live in a way that's appropriate, polite to others, courteous to others, which means much more than saying please and thank you. It's the way how you conduct yourself, how you're an example to other people. That's the message which I try and convey, and I think that resonates with people. When I speak, I'm often invited to speak on many subjects. I have a certain expertise regarding Holocaust. Historically, I'm a little bit knowledgeable as well. But often the subject which resonates the most is when I speak about their cheretz, just simply acting with civility towards every person. That dovetails perfectly with this program, which is to unite everyone. And therefore, please don't go there. Like who are those who are not interested? We want to focus on those who are interested. And basically, it resonated with so many people. The reaction has been stupendous.
Yeah, well, 100,000 people, and I'm sure it's going to be more because even if, there's a lot of people that gather around one screen. Yes, Rav Taragin.
If I can step in here,
please.
Rav Teller is so humble. I've had the great zchut of having a personal relationship with Rav Teller for over 30 years. And if I may say, number one, Rav Teller is unique because he has this unique ability to say things that most people say in a way that sounds mundane, in such an inspirational, relevant way. And in addition, he's someone who embodies the musar and the machshava and hashkafa messages he gives over. And also what's unique about him is that he's able to connect
All
both with
right.
the yeshivish world and the modern world in a powerful, meaningful way. And that's why he's been so instrumental in this program and helping it form, because he's someone who can relate to the realities of Jews all over the world. And just to go back for a second, Eve, to something you mentioned the custom that Jews have in Yerushalayim to go to the HaKotel on Shavuot morning. I don't know if your listeners know when this custom began. It began on the first Yom Yerushalayim in 1967, which had been right after the city had been liberated. And Jews had not been able to get to the Kotel yet. And suddenly the word went out that people could come there that Shavuot morning. And naturally, people streamed there. And this program is taking place right between Yom Yerushalayim and Shavuot. And the fact that it's being orchestrated by Yeshivat HaKotel is not coincidental. It makes sense that the Jewish world should be unified around the place that unifies all of us, where we all daven towards, the city that Chazal described as the Ir Shechubra La Yachdav, the city that connects all Jews to it, to each other through it. And that's a very important thing here as well. This isn't a program being run by a yeshiva in Chutz La'aretz, and not even in Israel. It's being run from the center of the world and the center of our Jewish world. And that's why it's beautiful, the connection to Yom Yerushalayim, to Rosh Chodesh Sivan, and to Shavuot.
So what is unusual about...
Yeah,
yes,
just from a historical
please.
perspective.
Yes, Rav Teller.
And that is that everything Rabbi Taragin said, of course, is correct. But that very first Shavuot, when the first time that the Kotel was opened up to the public, so the Mir Yeshiva, where I still learn, which is located in Beit Yisrael, the first Shavuot morning, instead of davening Kvatikin in Netz and Yeshiva, Rav Chaim Shmulevitz, the elder Rosh Yeshiva, the most prominent Rosh Yeshiva of the generation, he started walking towards the Kotel, and of course the whole yeshiva followed after him, all the avrechim and all the students, and not one of them could keep up with him. He was skipping, he was running, and the yeshiva, young men in their 20s, couldn't keep up with his elderly Rosh Yeshiva and his joy and the zeal to get to the Kotel.
So unfortunately, since that Nes Galui, there's no other word for it, the open miracle of the victory of the 1967 war, and of course how we celebrate Yom Yerushalayim, Jerusalem Day, and the liberation, not just of Jerusalem, of Judea and Samaria, the fabulous things that happened in 1967. We can't avoid the fact, though, that we live in a politicized world. And that moment of unity that caught everybody has, over the last few decades, sometimes created fissures. We, the three of us, live in Israel. We believe strongly in the importance of Jews living in Eretz Yisrael. Not everybody, there's many Jews in the diaspora, which is why you're running this program, who are not here, who are very, very attached to their Judaism, perhaps not as attached to Israel. So when you put together a program like this, you have managed to gather Torah educators with many different thoughts, also not just political, but different streams of Judaism together. Rav Taragin, we have chief rabbis. I mean, who is on this program, many of whom are not actually physically living in Israel, also may have, be honest, different ideas about Jerusalem Day, whether it's a holiday, whether we say Hallel, there's a whole lot of stuff that has to do with it. As I said before, we like to discuss everything. But what have you done here, Rav Taragin, in really finding the common ground, if you will, and bringing everyone together for this incredible program?
Well, on the chief rabbi level, there are 8 speaking. 4 from Israel, 2 Sephardic and 2 Ashkenazic, which of course is very important and very beautiful.
Yes.
Rav Yitzchak Yosef and Rav Shlomo Amar, and Rav Yisrael Meir Lau and Rav David Lau.
Wow.
And 4 from overseas. The 2 chief rabbis of England, former chief rabbi, Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sachs, Rabbi Ephraim Mervis, Rabbi Beryl Lazar of Russia, and Rabbi Warren Goldstein of South Africa, famous for the Shabbos Project.
Right.
Familiar?
Yes.
The second category of speaker are the senior Rosh Yeshiva. Obviously, for the Torah world, that's very important. People like Rav Yisrael Reisman from Torah Vadas, Rav Reuven Feinstein, the famous son of the famed Rav Moshe Feinstein, Rav Asher Weiss from Eretz Yisrael, Rav Avigdor Nebenzahl from Yeshivat HaKotel, Rav Herschel Schechter from YU. And the third category are the inspirational speakers, men and women. There's a full program of women speakers. There will be 2 women speakers in each slot. On the one hand, the more modern speakers, Sivan, Rav Meir, Shani Taragin, Yael Ziegler, etc. From the more yeshivish world, Rebbetzin Tarshish, Rebbetzin Heller, I mentioned also Yemima Mizrachi of Israeli fame. It's really an all-star lineup. And the question you asked, Eve, about the unifying force, as you said, people have different views on many, many things. The unifying feature here is our Torah. And what we're encouraging people to focus on is look at what we share, the 95 to 99% of what we share, instead of the 1 to 5% about what we disagree on. And even though we aim to be unified with all Jews, even Jews we share much less with, there should be a higher level of unity we share with Jews who love Torah, learn Torah, and are committed to mitzvot. And unfortunately, sometimes people we're closest to, we work hard to distinguish ourselves from. And that's sad because we should feel this common bond. And especially when we talk about Torah, our commentaries explain God is one, the Torah is one, and the Jewish people are one. And we represent both those singular values in this world. And if we are not one, we do not properly represent God and the Torah's oneness. And so being one doesn't mean being the same. We're supposed to be different, but we need to make sure we see ourselves as shades of one people as opposed to different peoples. And that's what this program is meant to emphasize. And I'll just add that, 364 days a year, people learn Torah separately and sadly often divided from each other. And the coronavirus has deepened this sense of separateness and loneliness. And everyone is longing to come out of our cave, like of Shimon Bar Yochai, and reconnect. The goal of this program is to help us realize that reconnection needs to be not just with our friends and people of a similar hashkafa, but with the entire Jewish people. And the way we do this is by making sure to see the positive in the person carrying the 2 flowers for Shabbat, and not to burn people with our eyes by focusing on whatever negative attributes they have, if we refer back to the famous story of Rav Shimon Bar Yochai coming out of the cave. So as we come out of our caves now, with the improvement in the situation, may it continue to improve, we have to make sure that we internalize and express our appreciation of this lesson. We need to reconnect to the entire Jewish people. And for sure, those who share values that we share of Torah and mitzvot.
One of the most difficult things for many religious people in this last few weeks has been the inability to have community events. The synagogues have been closed, and so those centers where people meet and pray together and learn together, that's been inaccessible. And of course, the events that keep us all together as communities, going to weddings, going to bar mitzvahs, unfortunately also going to funerals or paying shiva calls, we haven't been able to do that. And so, as Rav Taragin said, there is a sense of, we've lost to some degree our community. And what I find fascinating, and there's no such thing as coincidence, is the timing here. Just as we're all kind of on the verge of reopening the synagogues and perhaps having these things again, you are going to the macro before we go back to the micro. Because when people go back to their synagogue, they're going to go back to the synagogue, which is their comfort zone, where people pray the way they do and dress the way they do. And those little nuances that those of us who live in the Jewish world are very familiar with, we're going back to the little nuances. But what's happened here, and again, the timing is outrageous, is that first we're going back to Sinai, if you will, where we're all together without the little differences. We're going to learn together. We're going to find that common ground of Torah together, God willing, on Sunday, if people will participate. And then go back to the little, again, the more nuanced little communities in which we feel comfortable. And I think that's a tremendous reminder that we belong to the Am. We belong to a great people, not just to our communities and to our different neighborhoods, but to something so much bigger that spans the globe and spans time and space. All right? 3,000 years for us is some of our plumbing is older than 3,000 years here living here. But its time is very, very different when you have a Jewish reference, because we've been around for a long, long time, and it's really, and it is, when you think about it, it really gives you the shivers. Absolutely. It's the same Torah that was given so long ago and has been learned in so many different ways, and somehow is relevant no matter where we're living. It's an incredible thing. Somehow it's relevant. Rav Teller, I'm going to do something semi-obnoxious and ask you, since you're sitting here on the screen, to give my listeners some kind of motivational or inspirational talk. I'm sure all of us can use it. This has been a difficult few weeks. Many people listening here have lost loved ones. It hasn't just been about not being able to see the people they love. For some people who are listening, they will never again see some of the people that they love because of what's happened with this pandemic. And I'm sure that we could all use now some kind of words of understanding of what's happening here and of motivating us really to see a future here that is going to be different, the new normal as they call it, in so many ways, but that still we're going to have to, readjust. So what I'm sure you've done more than just a little bit of thinking in the last few weeks. Neither of you are people who ever stop thinking. I don't even know how you sleep. But perhaps you could share with us some words that will inspire those of us and get us through these not such simple times. Rav Teller.
I'm not hearing you all that well, but I just think the simplest conclusion to make is that it behooves all of us to come out of this differently than we entered this. And there's a shocking lesson, and the loss of life is just absolutely appalling. I personally know people are still in grave danger, very grave danger. And our heart goes out to them, our tefillos goes out to them. And but even if we've been spared, I had people, two of my children came down with COVID-19, and Baruch Hashem, they're fine now. But the critical thing is, like all situations, if we just, we go through a Rosh Hashanah, we go through Yom Kippur, and then we're back to business as usual, then we haven't learned the lesson. Kodesh Baruch Hu could not have been clearer. This is something, at least in my lifetime, nothing has been as manifest as the power of Kodesh Baruch Hu to change the whole world in just the blink of an eye. And that lesson has to be, and here is the greatest application of what Rav Taragin is doing, of uniting us all to learn the Torah. That's a very important message. We, as you mentioned earlier, we get involved in our micro. We have our own lives and our own schedules. It's time to readjust. If we don't take this message, that's a pity. The Vilna Gaon writes that, and Rav Chaim Volozhiner stresses this, that ultimately we're going to be judged how we conduct ourselves. And if you don't, at the age of, let's say, 50, you're not more empathetic and kinder than you were at the age of 45, then you have failed life. That's a bummer. It's one thing but we all know, everyone knows, everyone knows you can fail a test and not flunk the course. A plane which flies from New York to Los Angeles, 85% of the route is off course. It's constantly, dynamically, perpetually vectored back on course. But the bottom line is it lands in the right runway, in the right airport, in the right city. It's 100% success. Falling down is not a mistake. Staying down is a mistake. So we've all been knocked down a little bit. The gym where I work out here in Jerusalem is staffed by Russians that are Hebrew challenged. So I was trying to go from the squash court to the pool without getting changed and going outside, and one of them caught me and he said to me, "Ata ta'ut," which translates, "You are a mistake."
Right.
I'm still thinking about it. Again, our mistake would be if we have something like this, and then Israel's opening up, and we haven't taken message to heart, that would be a tragedy.
So I think Rav Taragin, I think that what you've organized here really, if it's just a one-day event, then according to what Rav Teller is saying here, it was a beautiful event, and people tuned in, and we had the opportunity to hear from some of the wisest and most dynamic Torah educators in the world. But if then we turn off our Zoom and we turn off other computers and everybody goes home and it doesn't speak nicely to somebody else, or maybe could give a little more charity and doesn't, or maybe is a little angry when patience is called for, then the message was lost. So how maybe a question for the two of you, how can we take this further? That it's going to be this event, but just like Sinai was, it was the beginning of something. It wasn't a one-off event. Sinai was the beginning of us as a people, as having being given the Torah in order to disseminate it around the world and change humanity, which when you think about it is just, oh boy, how did we do that? So how do we change humanity on a little level starting on Sunday? Rav Taragin,
Eve,
or Rav Teller, yes.
I think your question is the capital T question. And like anything else in life, things are meaningful if we use them to build upon for our future. And there's already a lot of talk about what the next steps are. But as you said a few moments ago, what this program represents is that we learned in Corona how we can be stuck at home alone, but connected to every other Jew in the world. And when we emerge and we're able to reconnect personally with those we're in close proximity to, we need to not leave behind what we found in our ability to connect to Jews around the world. And I think that's the takeaway. How do we make sure to strengthen our global community? And I think Jews have always felt this way. And clearly, Israel diaspora relationships have been a central issue for us for a very long time. But now we've learned how we can build together and what forums we can use and which days will have similar programs to this and what other initiatives there'll be. Those are excellent questions, but the takeaway is clear. The takeaway is each rabbi should teach in his shul, each chief rabbi should be responsible for his country, and all of us together should work to inspire the entire Jewish community around the globe.
And Mizrachi has definitely taken a lead on that, without a question. This entire time, I know I've been privileged to be a part of some of Mizrachi programs. I put together a virtual tour for Jerusalem Day that's going to be coming out on Thursday, which was a tremendous privilege about the 1967 war and the paratroopers liberating Jerusalem. And so I think that you're playing a critical role here in getting everyone together. And I don't want any of my listeners to minimize how challenging this must have been to organize this day, to get the agreement across the board and the cooperation of so many people is really, like you said, unprecedented. And it should just be the beginnings of something important, like you said, of focusing on what brings us together and not apart. What's difficult for many of us, it's not difficult because it's a bracha, Shabbat. On Shabbat, those of us who are Torah observant Jews are only in touch with the people just around us. And we don't use Zoom, and we don't use phones, and we don't use all the apparatus now that the world has in order to connect with people far away. And that, I think, is still an incredibly important message. Okay, the importance of Shabbat and of Shavuot. And we actually, you're not running this on Shavuot itself because it's a Yom Tov. It's a day where we're not going to be connected. So it's a way of connecting that's very important around the world. But I think it also brings in how that one day a week, or sometimes when there's a holiday, we just connect to the people around us and to ourselves and to Hashem, and how important that is as well. And so the bandwidth, if you will, of Judaism swings very large. So we can have an event where 100,000 or even more than 100,000 people will be together, but then on Shavuot itself, when we're actually doing our Torah learning, it will be with the people in the room with us and only with the people in the room with us. And those two ends, and working our way in the middle of it is I think, one of the challenges and one of the beauties of Judaism. It's so not black and white, and we can learn to do both in their proper time. Okay.
Beautiful. Well said. Couldn't have said it better myself.
I'm going to just address very quickly, you want to know what's going to be for the future. So first of all, leave it to we'll come up with another million ideas. Furthermore, it's not a one-off event. People are going to, and it's not just to show up on your screen, it's to pay attention. And it's like, you should pardon me, with Al-Khayt, there's always one that's tailor-made for you among all the array of speakers. And it's an unbelievable all-star lineup, present company excluded. All-star lineup, you'll find one that will speak to you, that will resonate with you, and that will inspire you. It will not just be a one-time event.
Yes.
It will be something that will last with you, will be cherished for life.
Right. And to go by that, I'm not saying for Rav Teller, of course, particularly, but that one teacher, you're like, wow, I never heard of that person before. But this is tailor-made for me, this message, to buy the books, to follow the shiurim, to follow the lessons, and to really, it could be that on Sunday, you will meet your match, right? You will find that person that you didn't know about before, whose words go right to your heart. And there are many out there. Thank God. The amount of Torah that is being learned and being taught on the planet right now, I don't know if there's ever been that. And some of us who have had extra time now because we don't have work have been able to fill some of our time with Torah learning that we wouldn't have had the chance to do before. And so those are some of the other silver linings in a very big cloud. And those hopefully we will keep with us even when we come out of this and go back So whatever, again, normal is going to be, and it's going to be a different kind of a normal. Rav Taragin, any last words? How can people get into this program? Where do they find it?
The best way to get all the information is to go to Vayichan, VAYICHAN, Vayichan.com. There you can register for a WhatsApp group or an email list. Later today, please God, the schedule will be going out and continued information will be coming out. All the links are posted there. The best way to see the shiurim is by using the YouTube links. YouTube is the safest, most reliable platform. And each shiur has its own link that you can go into at the time when it's starting, and it's very easily accessible. So I recommend to your listeners to go into vayichan.com. You'll see there all the shiurim, all the information, all the speakers and their pictures, and people can prepare for what will be really an unprecedented, exciting day. And just to reemphasize, it's taking place at the same time in all countries. So for example, in the US, on the East Coast, it's from 10 to 3. In Israel, it's from 5 to 10. In England, it's from 3 to 8. So it's timed so that it works well in each country. Everyone, their friends, their relatives, maybe sitting separately, but learning together. And that's what's so beautiful here.
That's what's amazing. And I'm just going to have to add that the only bad thing that I see about this program is that it's in English. Not because English is a bad language, and of course it's the lingua franca, if you will, of the world right now, and this program is going out in English, but because Hebrew, Ivrit, our reinvigorated, rejuvenated language. Huh? Excuse me, Rav Teller?
There will be
so that's what I wanted to ask.
Rav Yisrael Meir Lau.
Exactly what I wanted to ask. Beautiful.
The Sephardic chief rabbis, Rav Yitzchak Yosef and Rav Shlomo Amar, are speaking in Ivrit. In Yirtz Hashem, there will be English subtitles.
Okay.
And I want there's someone speaking Yiddish from Bnei Brak. So again, that's also still part of it. But I want to echo what you're saying and say that we hope that very soon the only language Torah will be taught in will be Hebrew, because there won't be a need for people to be taught Torah in any other language. And that's, of course, all of our hope.
And the language is such a rich language where every word has so many meanings that no matter how well it's translated, it's Lashon HaKodesh, it's the Holy Tongue, and it still doesn't approach what we have in the actual Hebrew. So with that, the blessing for everybody out there who's listening to this, of course, in English, which is my mother tongue, because I was born in the United States, will be able to understand Hebrew on such a high level, will be able to learn Torah on such a high level, argue with each other in Hebrew, and order pizza in Hebrew, and make it the living language that it was always intended to be, which is why the Torah was written in Hebrew. And so this is kind of like what we've got right now, but that's a goal perhaps that we should have for ourselves as well, is to be able to have more of them, more of the lessons in Hebrew, and people saying, oh, that's not a big deal. I mean, I know I'm at the point in my life, and I know for sure these two esteemed rabbis are, where sometimes I'm not sure what I just spoke or what I just thought. If it was if I learned something, I can't even remember if I learned it in Hebrew or English, because it just went into my head. And that's a beautiful level to be at, to be able to integrate it. So thank you so much, Rav Reuven Taragin, Rav Hanoch Teller, both of you. I know this program is going to be an unprecedented success and just one of many. And so, Rav Teller, any last words before we sign off for today?
No, just we've said enough. Thank you.
We've said enough. Okay, thank you so much. All right, Eve Harow, Rejuvenation on the Land of Israel Network. Thanks to Ben and thanks to Tabitha for putting this show out. I hope all of you are listening are well and stay well, and that the worst is behind us in this crazy situation that we're in, and that you use the Torah and the coming holidays, Jerusalem Day, to appreciate the physical importance of the state of Israel, the price that was paid and is still being paid by many in order to keep us physically safe and back in our homeland, and of course Shavuot and the Torah and the inspiration that comes with that. So wishing you all really a wonderful week and a very meaningful week. God willing, I will be back next week. So Eve Harow on Rejuvenation for the Land of Israel Network. Be well, everybody. Goodbye for now.